welcome to Cultural Voices. Mark Fleming from Rosie Lee's. Thank you for joining me today to talk about you and for us to dig a bit deeper into the person behind the incredible work that we've all seen, all been part of, such as MX Day, such as Nike 10, such as any projects for the last 30 years that might have involved everyone we love, from Jordan to Beats, Google to Marvel, National Geographic. The list goes on, but this is not really about that. This is about how these things came about and what has shaped your quite remarkable career path. So let's start off with a bit about who you are, like your
Mhm.
personal foundations. Like, what's your upbringing? What's your background, and how did that shape the way you see the world today?
Um, I was born in Birmingham, a lovely city. I kind of don't think of it so fondly because it's one. We'll talk about that. So I was raised in Birmingham by a single mother. She was raising us in the 70s. I think if you're
Hmm.
old enough to appreciate that, having a family out of wedlock was not cool. You have a lot
Yep.
of people being very critical and
Hmm.
our wider family members. And I think from that, that instilled a bit of a chip on my shoulder, in my shoulder, on my shoulder. Um, because oh yeah, like I didn't know it at the time, but we were being
Yeah.
ostracized or we were being left out. And anyway, so that was something that started quite young. My brother's father, he was like what would be the way to describe him? I think if you were to meet him, you think, oh, what a cool person. He's like
Mm.
this dapper guy, Jack the Lad. He was a dealer, he was a blues party DJ and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But in reality, he was a bit of a git. And I
Right.
think,
Right.
I mean, it's all well and good to have this Jack the Lad guy. Uh, and again, he was just rogue. And I think later I kind of appreciated that he was a functioning addict as well. So my,
Yeah.
my upbringing was a bit colourful, I suppose. There was always interesting characters weaving in and out the house, uh,
Hmm.
which gave, like, again, I don't regret any of that. I look at it with fondness because you get to meet all kinds of people,
Of course.
breezing through the house, or the flat, and yeah, you get to appreciate that. And then I think, yeah, and then moving to college, I think that was where the Mark 2.0 began.
Right. And how do you think, sort of, because, although you can probably look back in fondness now, as you mentioned, it also feels quite challenging as well, growing up in that situation. Were there any sort of like any triumphs from that time where you're like, this has influenced even deciding what to do at college? And maybe you can just tell us what you did at college, but how did you decide to go to college, and how did you decide to take that path? And what was it
But
that got you there?
again, this was a time where we were latchkey kids. If you left the house,
Mm.
see you
Yes.
later. It's not like today where everything's very controlled. The stuff
Mhm.
that we did, a kid today would never do, or would never be allowed to do. Uh, um, but yeah, I think that independence, and then I think seeing my mother worked really hard. She trained to work in pubs, and then she became a
Mhm.
pub landlord, and she was, I think,
Wow.
the only pub landlord to run a pub by herself in the UK when we were young.
Wow.
And I think
Gosh.
seeing her kind of work her ass off, like, and doing
Mm.
multiple jobs, and I think that work ethic, and again, the somewhat bit of a chip on my shoulder kind of gave me the kind of what would be the word, the venom in me to move forward and do stuff. Sorry,
I
Karen.
think, and I think it's so interesting what you're saying, because I'm also from that generation. I think we are quite similar in age, and actually our career paths, like 30 and a bit years, is really really similar. And I always say, God, I wonder how it was like we'd disappear for the day,
Yeah.
no idea where we were. There was no way to contact us. Hope, I'm sure, as a parent now, like wondering where my son is, can, but I also know I can contact him with a mobile phone is so different. And you do learn independence, and you do sort of, get into scrapes, and you get into all these things, but you also learn how to get out of them and how to navigate your way. So I think there is definitely something around that early and very different way of growing up and being a kid, and kind of health and safety was out the window. My BMX had no brakes, and that was just how it was. I had to stop the
Yeah,
bike by slamming into a wall. That's kind of just how it was. So it's
it
really
is funny.
interesting how that has shaped that. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it is funny when you talk to people, and I was chatting to someone yesterday about this. It's like,
Mm,
it, if you were to look at my job spec now or the things I do, I would do it out of
mm,
necessity. But if you were speaking to someone else and go, "There's no way I'm going to do that," I wouldn't live like that.
right.
Like, if you, yeah, I mean, if I come back from being out all day with my brother and my mother wasn't home, if she was working, I'd cook for us. No, that
Yeah,
would be the sort of thing. It's like you have to kind of get on with it. And I think,
yeah,
rightly or
yes,
wrongly, that has become a bit of my DNA where, uh, yes, I do run a business, but in some respects, by default, I'm a bit of a lone wolf. And I have to, you know what I mean? I don't mean that in a horrible
yes.
way. It's just like
No, no.
I'm independent, and
Yeah.
and I can just
You
go.
get on with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you get on with it, because you have to, or else what's the alternative, so I hear you and I get that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
And yeah.
if you didn't get, if there was no money, I mean, back then, you had to put money in the meter. If there was no money, you had to go and do what you had to do to get the money to put in the meter. And I
That's
think that, it's kind of strange when you try to speak to people now. What, you used to put money in the meter to have electric?
yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
bizarre.
believe me, if you didn't have that key with money on it, I remember when I first came to London, I was like, oh, that Sunday night when you money on that key was like, yeah, I get it. I mean, and that's different even growing up. I was already an adult when I arrived in London, and that was difficult enough. So tell me about the sort of intersection then between self and work. Like, for all the values and all that way of being, that kind of independent, get on with it way of looking at the world, how has that influenced your professional decisions um today, with any parts of your career path, or any decisions within actual projects as well? Does that connect to each other?
It what I find, I have a very unhealthy sort of relationship with work. I'm very meshed with it,
Mm,
um,
mm.
which
I hear
which
you.
which is a good and a bad thing.
Mm,
Like I said, when I first came to London, I started kind of doing things, going out, meeting people, chatting to people, and just through iterations of growing up, I
mm,
managed to kind of
mhm.
become a different person, network with different people, just be curious, be cheeky, and then lo
Yeah,
and behold, you're backstage or you're in a party, you're chatting to someone who needs a flyer, and I think I learned, what's the worst they can say? No,
yeah, yeah.
and I
I
think
love that.
as you
Yeah.
as you get on more and more,
Mm.
you kind of realize that, yeah, what's the worst can happen, and that can be doing flyers for people or taking a chance on some Nike work
Yeah.
or this or that. So I think you just learn to back yourself.
I think I love that, because I feel like, and I really like the way you've said that, because for me, I've always gone, you don't ask, you don't get, a little bit. You know what I mean? So there's no fear in someone going no, because that's okay. It's okay, and it's just like you roll on and you just try something else, and you try something new, and you sort of carry on going. But I wonder if that's different now again. When I was also learning my craft, I guess, what do you think it was more open? I'm from a time of when we were just starting to create, like, what they call now guerrilla marketing, but for us was just a way of trying to convince people to do something, come to a party, come to whatever, in whatever format that needed to be. We didn't really put it into any boxes. It was just like, okay, well, here is this thing, and here is who we're trying to talk to, and this is how you need to talk to them. It felt a bit intuitive that way. Do you think it's do you think that today that's harder to do? Because everything
Well,
feels like it's quite formulaic in the way things are done. I feel I'm constantly talking about, please, can we break the formulas? Because I don't know. What do you think from then to now? Do you think that that's shifted and changed
well,
from
I
being a bit more
think
experimental to a bit more formulaic?
from a creative point of view, I think I'm a bit of a hybrid creative because I'm a
Yeah.
business owner. I can't be
Mm.
a bit of a wallflower. I can't be precious. I've got to be able to like walk into a meeting room and or go into a club or do all and be cheeky. I can't, I've got to be, you know what I mean? I don't really like the word entrepreneurial because I think it's kind of that's lost its. I don't really know what
What
that
it's
means.
supposed to be. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the sort of thing. I think, back then, if you wanted to go to a club night, there'd be a flyer or you hang around a phone box, there'd be a message,
Totally.
right? You'd go, or you'd know someone who'd know someone, you know,
That's
uh,
it. Mm.
or again, we talk about this a lot in like retail projects or in certain places. You hang in a spot if the person behind the counter or the person that's selling records or whatever, oh, you should,
Yeah.
if you strike a rapport with them, they would say, oh, you should come down to the end or go to the,
Yes.
so literally it was more
Yep.
word of mouth. And I think it was more credible because if you were in the right place at the right time, wearing the right thing and the right whatever,
Mm.
that was
Mm.
your passport to say, you're interesting. Swing by this tonight. Andrew's doing a gig or this or that. Do you know what I mean? It's just a little bit different.
I
Whereas,
do.
whereas today, um, we're going to get into trouble. Like the way everything's so inclusive, like, would you want to go to a party where everyone in the world is invited?
Mm.
No. There,
Well, I
there,
think, I think, and it brings me back to this kind of like ideation around the algorithm, what I call algorithmic everything, right? So
Mhm.
everything starts to look the same because the algorithm is feeding out how you should look, what color, and you lose this identity and this individuality and this idea of, the new gatekeeping around curation and around, and tastemakers, like, almost coming back to what it was, and I'm all for it, because I feel like there is something about expertise and there is something about passion that's not algorithmic. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's a bit what you're talking about here. Whereas before, inclusive is again one of those loaded words. I feel that it's not necessarily about anyone and everyone, but I think you need to have a passion for whatever you're interested in, and that's always going to be attractive, and you
Well,
want to be surrounded by people like that, that a bit tribal, that tribes that we used to talk about back in the day, not so much like that, a new version of that maybe, but there is a place I feel for the curators of these things. And what does that mean? Let's see what happens
I
going forward,
think
but there is a need for individuality, please.
I
Yeah.
think I'm not saying no one should be allowed. There should be a guest list.
No.
I think there has to
No.
be a protocol. I think if you're curious enough to step in, then you're welcome.
Respectfully,
Yeah, you know, I,
respectfully.
there's many parties and things that I probably shouldn't have gone to, but because I was a little bit cheeky or a bit like that,
Yeah.
go, you know what I mean? There has to be a barrier to entry to kind of make sure that, well, they want to control their environment to make sure that you're not going to
Mm,
spoil it for them. It's just, again, so it's a
mm,
creative experience. I think, again, I talk about this or think about this a lot. Like being young, I was goth, then I went into indie. When I was at college, I kind of
mhm.
started moving into, I mean, dance and rave was being
Yes.
born. And I think I really loved the chapters and of my life where it was more tribal.
Mhm,
And the interesting thing then,
mm.
you would never mix. If you were a goth, you would never go.
No,
You would never
no
go to.
way.
You would never go to what then would be called a straight pub, or
Yeah,
you would never. If you were into
sure.
dance, there's no way. And I think that doubling down on tribes and culture was like that's where it really shines. Whereas today, you can wake
Mm.
up in the morning, or if my son, he listens to all genres of music,
Yes.
and I think it's fantastic from one point of view. But you are blurred all the edges of identity, and I
Mm.
think that's I see parts of it coming back, but I think
Yeah.
when people were tribal or had a clique or they wore certain things, you could tell a lot by someone if they were wearing.
Straight away.
Yeah,
Straight away.
and
You
you
knew.
go,
You were like, yes. Yeah.
you go, all right,
You nodded the head. Yeah,
yeah, you're
exactly.
like,
You're like, I get you. Yeah.
yeah, nice tee, or like dope shoes, or
Yes.
back in the day, I was wearing, because I was into the model army, I was wearing clogs or whatever it is.
Yes.
They'd go,
Yeah.
yep, and that was it. Then doors would open or doors would close because you
Yeah.
had all the tells were
Mm.
about. But yeah, it's. I find
It,
today just a little bit more. I wouldn't say generic in a bad way.
yeah.
It's very hard to
Yeah.
really put a finger on someone's identity, not identity, but
Mm.
their core, because they're
Yeah.
more.
And that's what's so interesting about it, you know what I mean? And um I'm interested with the next generation because I do feel like there's a bit of understanding about variety in the world, but also I think there's a need also for like still like-minded. I think that's always going to be interesting, but without excluding everyone else. So perhaps it's a 2.0 version of what it needs to be going forward, to your point as well. So we talked about adversity, and I'd like to chat to you a bit about any examples of like a personal challenge or something that has profoundly shaped your resilience or creativity. So is there anything that's really personal to you that has been challenging but has actually helped um, with your career path?
Well, again, having that, when I was young, we were never invited to parties or weddings and things like that because my family, my wider family, and my mother used to say, "Well, why?" And like,
Mm,
"Are my kids rude?" No, no, they're lovely. Oh, this and that. And I think again, that kind of gave me a bit of a bee in my bonnet about things. And I think,
mm,
um, I don't know. Again, like I said, I'm so meshed with my work and my identity, and it's like, don't tell me no. Like that
mm.
will just make me come back harder, or I don't know. It's a very interesting one. I am a very bullish, and also it has backfired in certain times.
Sure.
I have stepped over boundaries. Uh,
Yeah,
it's an interesting one because these things can be a strength and be a hindrance as well. I think
totally. Mm,
when Rosie Lee was, I don't know, maybe 10 years old,
mhm.
my original business partner, we had to part ways. He was struggling with some things, and we just had to just say, okay, enough. And I was
Yeah.
chatting to my partner at the time, and she kind of said, "Listen, like, just jack it all in. We can handle it. We can get rid of the house. We can
Mm,
get rid of the car, as long as we're together and our son. It doesn't really matter." And I think you realise that if you've got someone in your corner, you can
oof.
come out swinging all the time.
Whew.
And
Yes.
and I think that it wasn't really that. On reflection, it wasn't tough because she said what she said, and I knew
Mm,
she had my back, or and I think that reminded me that sometimes, I know it's who you're with. You can quite easily lose sight of the mission, uh, uh,
definitely.
and I think that was
Mm,
kind of a bad time. But from that, through then reconfiguring the business, we were able to invite Russell into the business. So even though
yes.
it was a quite a tricky moment, it was a catalyst of change, which we've gone on again and again and again. So yeah, it just goes to
It's
show that,
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, and on reflection now, and I guess even now, when thinking about, the values I'm trying to instill in my son Jacob is, I've got your back. Like that piece of inner confidence and security is a game changer. It's a game changer for anything that you want to do in the world. You know what I mean? And I think if you don't have that when you're younger, it can hold you back just because you see those kids at school who someone's got them, you know what I mean, and they like they move in a different way, they kind of, and I feel like that sounds familiar from that story you told me, familiar to have someone having your back. You move differently. You know, you can try things, and it won't feel like if you fail, it's a problem. You know what I mean? Because that's what it's all about. Like, for me, any sort of challenge or failure is an opportunity to iterate and move things forward, honestly. Have any of your lived experience kind of given you a unique advantage into solving problems or creating new opportunities? So sometimes, as you said, it can be a hindrance, but it can also be, the thing that pushes things forward. Um,
I think I was diagnosed with dyslexia late in life. I think I was in my 40s. I
mhm.
mean, there was clearly something afoot in my brain. There was obviously, but to have a diagnosis, I don't think it really changed anything, but I think it helped other people understand that I'm not just crazy. I think crazy, or because, it all comes out and whatever. And
Yes.
having having a difference such as dyslexia, and I'm sure I've got other things as well. Um, I think that enabled me to be a little bit, I don't know, non-linear and
Mm,
and
mm.
kind of do really interesting things, especially working with brands like Nike, where there's
Sure.
definitely a formula. I wouldn't say it's a very hard formula to follow
Yeah.
because you can't just do Nike. Um,
No.
but again, by having that kind of erraticness and thinking differently, and then also through learning to be a bit entrepreneurial, to be a bit cheeky, and to be the
Mhm.
person in the room uh, that says the thing that needs to be said, but no one wants to
Yes.
say it. Um, Again, being quite forthright uh, can, do you know what I mean? It's an interesting kind
Yes, I
of,
do.
it's an interesting. I'm sure there's many a times you seem to be very similar to me. I'm sure there's a lot of
Yes,
times
very
you
similar.
go, I don't believe they just said that, but they were thinking it. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, I think my challenge is the way I say it. And it's something that I have to, because I'm about clarity. So for me, when I try to say something, I try to make it as clear as possible, which sometimes I know can feel too direct. But then I'm like, because I don't want it to be confused with something, for me, my tone of voice and clarity is the thing that I have to constantly be thinking about as I say the things that need to be said but other people are thinking.
Oh, we
So
were we were talking about this the other day. Like sometimes I
yeah.
say, and I'm sure people go, "Dick," right?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
yeah.
sure I have that
And then
for
other people go
sure.
like, and then other people go, yeah, you're right, and they double
Great.
down,
Yes.
and we
Yeah,
get even tighter. So I think
of
like
course.
Russell kind of was talking about it. It's probably something I do, and it's a double-edged sword, and it can be a way of a filter to kind of like anyone that probably doesn't gel with the way I talk. I mean,
Yeah.
luckily we have like James and Russell and Tom that can kind of step in, or if the energy's out of whack. But if we do
Yeah.
click, we are like kindred spirits, uh, and
Totally.
and you
Yes.
you become that. You're on their speed dial. Hey, Mark,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
blah 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 blah. And I think yeah, it's for me, it's a blessing and a curse, but it
I
seems to be doing.
totally understand. I mean, I'm so similar to that because I have clients who like, I know they really value that way of being, and then others who might feel a bit of a way if I'm just going. But all of it actually is to get to better work. None of it is to say anything about anyone personally, you know what I mean? But it is a challenge for me to be able to deliver things in a way that's positively, or at least taken in a way, take and heard, because sometimes
Mhm.
I think people just go, "Oh, the clarity is too direct." Do you have an example of a project, of a brand you've worked on, where that perspective has led to a breakthrough or unexpected success for a client? So anything you go, you know what, we were having this issue, and then I was like, I said the thing, I said the thing, and actually that is the thing
Uh,
that changed the path
or,
of that
or
project.
there's one particular. We were in Shanghai for a project, and
Hmm.
for the Olympics, and in there are words that we use within the Nike thing that okay. you'd have a tactical project, blah blah blah. But I
Yes.
misheard what the person said. He said tactical. That's interesting. What
Okay.
if? So what if instead of doing a pop-up, usually a pop-up in a city is, whether it's Brooklyn or Manhattan or whatever, or London, we're in London, East London, Shoreditch, whatever. So
Yeah.
I thought, do you know what? What if we made this pop-up a tactical unit? So we had like literally make it like a tactical SWAT team. And through
Right.
mishearing her, that kind of went, yeah, right. Let's do it. Let's make it mobile. Let's make it like a tactical SWAT unit, and it can go all across Shanghai. Uh,
Yes.
I think sometimes, again, through me mishearing or me, again, I have numerous friendships at brand level where people would call and we talk directly to each other. Uh,
Mm.
I know some of the times it's more so in confidence, because sometimes the individual I'm talking
Yeah.
to, they're going, my team's just not getting it. Their
Not
team's
ready. Yeah,
like, can you
totally. Totally. I get that.
come in and kind of like that leader will kind of say one thing and then I will reinforce it externally. So yes,
Mm.
again, I'm very lucky to have people like Russell and James that sometimes take it and make it more digestible or more
Yeah. The
not
buffer.
digestible, but
The buffer.
yeah, the buffer or the filter,
The filter.
yes.
Yeah, I think it's just so similar to, I guess sometimes how we have to be, because I do also have those amazing relationships where you have, the side chat going, listen, this is what's happening, and then it needs to be translated in a way that's different. But yeah, I think
Mhm.
if you find those clients, man, you do amazing things, you do amazing things. And it's always on the hunt for that kind of way of thinking where someone is so open to something that may feel quite different, but actually can lead to breaking the formula in a positive way, and doing great work and great projects. Tell me something about, if you enjoy those kind of clients, tell me about your own leadership style. How does that way of being translate to your team and your business? How do you describe your leadership style?
Well,
I can see
this
you
is where I have
smiling.
to,
There's something in your mind.
this is where this is where I have to phone a friend. I'm sure,
Okay.
like, I am the best leader.
Russell,
So
you can
I
call in at
am,
any time. Yeah.
I am, I am so good. Right. But I think what I've been very good at is, I think I learned years ago. I have
Mm.
friends who are relatively famous or well-known people, um, and I kind of learned, like take for instance Jasper Morrison, good friend,
Mhm.
and I kind of learned from them that my even better friend used to work for Jasper, and like you kind of realize that everything that John did, people attribute Jasper to doing it. So hence why not
Mm.
having Mark Fleming design. I don't. So through having Rosie Lee, it is under the hood. Everyone is part of the soup. If it was just my
Sure.
name, then people
Yeah.
assume I'm doing it all.
Mhm.
And I've been very lucky to find people like interesting feral individuals that kind of come along. Yes,
Who get it?
I'm very, I'm very kind of, direct, but I'm actually very pliable. If the right person says the right thing with the right passion, I will change
Mm.
quite easily. I think my leadership, I, I, again, through my differences and things like that, I struggle with remote. I'm very much an in-person person.
Same.
I
I
think
love
James
it.
and
Yeah.
Russell are that sort of thing. I think Russell kind of, there was a book or some, Russell kind of, what got you from there? What got you from there won't take you to here. Like, I think I have a certain set of skills that has got us really well. I need to adapt it. I don't think I'm a good leader in a modern say. I'm a good
Right.
troublemaker. If you want like a SEAL team kind of vibe, I'm your guy. If you want like does that kind of make sense? And each one in our team
Yes.
is like, so it like, I know I said at the beginning I'm a bit of a lone wolf, but in a pack of fellow lone wolves, I love that.
Yes. Yes,
That's
because
so
you
when you get
have your
into,
specific skills. Yes, yes.
yeah, so you get into a flow state, and I'm
Mm,
not very good to being around people who aren't additive to that
mm,
flow state. Like when
mm,
you watch like, do you know what I mean? When we're doing like Air Max Day, or we're doing these crazy projects, and the whole
mm.
team like galvanizes. Like when you see a jet, like one of those fighter jets on the ground, they're clunky, but once they get to Mach 1 and
Airborne.
Mach 2,
Yeah.
and then everything all sinks in, and then they just lean
Yes.
into it. And I love it when our team, I think we're not very good being idle, but when we're rolling, then everything tightens up and we become like crazy. And that's
Amazing.
the environment. That's the kind of team and the environment that I'm in. I enjoy.
And I think, you know what, it is about finding the environment and that you work best in. I think that's something that I
Mhm.
explain anyone who comes to Platform 13 or works for me. I'm like, I am a certain way and I've set up my business that works for me. It doesn't work for everyone. I'm extremely adaptable. I can work in chaos. I'm very fluid. I'm quick thinking, I'm troubleshoot, all of these things. But I've set it up because that's my skill set. And there are some people who thrive and some people who don't within that environment. It's got nothing to do with capability, nothing to do with anything. It's just certain environments are set up for me to be able to work in because I know what I do well and what I don't do well. So I think it's not dissimilar sounds for you. You've set up your business in order to, make sure that your skills are in the right place within that business as well, and some people um it's always really important to me that my teams understand that it's a way of working, and some people thrive in it and some people don't. So I totally hear you. It is about setting yourself up in the best possible environment to do amazing work. And it sounds like the pack sounds like your perfect environment and works really, really well. What do you think the role, because of that? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, but like anyone listening could probably think, "Oh, wow, he's that kind of person," and I'm like,
No.
yes, I am. But the thing is, I'm not like you're saying. I'm not shy
Mm,
about that. But the thing is, we
mm,
need diverse people. I think where I
of course.
struggle today, as we try to get more diverse in our thinking, and just in the past, virtually
Mm.
everyone that worked for us had worked in a pub at one. So we
Was that
knew,
the
okay.
requirement?
Well, I think virtually everyone at the core years had worked in a pub. All right, so that was
How
one thing. Whereas
interesting.
now, because
Yeah.
we want more diverse thinking and things like that, then the kind of the SEAL Team Six vibe is a little bit more tougher because you've got someone who works in a
Yeah.
different way, and
Mm.
so again, I kind of clash where like we're going, and they go, "Oh, at one moment, can you turn the music down? I'm just writing something." I said, "What? Like we're going? Like if you come to the studio, if you come to the studios, generally it's very noisy. Generally, it's like a
Yeah.
nightclub. There's.
Yeah.
But I think some people. I think today our team is more diverse in how they are, and I sometimes struggle
Mm.
with being uh, uh, in an environment where I've got to cater for broader
Yeah.
sensibilities.
Yeah. I feel like within that, what do you think the role of empathy is with this diverse ways of working, ways of thinking, ways of doing things? And how do you foster that in terms of your business? How do you go, okay, I understand that it may be difficult, more difficult for me, like you've just mentioned. How are you addressing that? How are you fostering that collaboration?
But the interesting thing is I believe in empathy and I want it. And luckily, I thought about it because you sent the questions over before and I was
Mm.
chatting to our team and I was saying, am I empathetic? And they looked at me and go, like, I think, and they all said, you are, I am, and I think I am, but sometimes it's a mode, it's something that doesn't come natural to me, so I have to
Mm.
factor it in.
Hmm.
Like again, when you're a business owner, again, we were talking about being a child of the 70s and things like that. You just did stuff. And I think
Hmm.
the skills that I have amassed weren't built on certain things. But today I try my best to to not factor it in, because it doesn't come naturally. I have to kind of think positively about it and bring it in. And luckily our team they're really supportive, and we always have multiple kind of things. I
Good.
think empathy generally is really, really important. But again, I have to, it's because it's not it doesn't naturally come to me. I have to be more focused, more deliberate in it. Does that kind of make sense?
Intentional about it. Yeah, totally,
Yeah.
totally. It's a bit like me with my challenge of directness. I'm South African, first of all. I mean, I have a direct way, but I have to intentionally consider that as I speak. And again, we're growing all the time, aren't we? And we're just trying to think of things in different ways all the time. No one's perfect. So, I feel like as long as you're trying, that's just going to be better for me than just going, oh, well, I understand I need to be, but that's just not how I am. And, so all props to you for making sure that there is a thought about these things. How do you, as someone who's got quite a unique perspective and way of doing things, how do you leverage and foster that about other people that you might work with? Do
But
you go, okay, go ahead.
I mean, with that one, sorry, again, my dyslexia is kicking in, so I always interrupt. That's one thing I always do, is
No,
interrupt.
no, no, don't worry. Don't worry.
I think what I've learned, so many, many years ago, we were starting working with Nike. And at that time, Wyden and Kennedy were doing the airport ads and things like these massive, like beautiful 3-minute shorts. And at the time, like, I was more of an identity designer, coming up with logos and things like that. And then our first project for Nike was the Bournemouth dye. That was for the Geo Merlin Vapor. And this was their first time. Nike at that time were coming into football or soccer football, and they had no history in it, so they couldn't reference the past. They couldn't reference whole things. So that's one thing. And then from that, I did some graphic treatments to share the client, Jack Gold, and I showed like graphics. And in the last page, there's a picture of me wearing a goalkeeper's kit, but I wet myself.
Right.
It was a silly idea. It was a silly idea. So everything was all about graphics. Everything was all about, really nice kind of things. But Jack at the time said, there's something in that. And that began our understanding of storytelling. Graphics and aesthetics are come and go. I love design, I love graphics, I love fonts, I love all that. But really, how does it make you feel? And unless you're with another designer, no one's going to, oh, I like the kerning on that, or I like the trapping on that, or I like the print finish on that. So the idea of the Bournemouth style, we created this journal. So think of John Doe from Out of Seven, the film Seven.
Yes.
And Inspector Clouseau's boss, that every time you mentioned him, he had a tick. So we created this crazy journal of this goalkeeper that was traveling the world hunting after this ball. And that really resonated with the client. And then from that, obviously I was saying Nike was doing their, Widens were doing their things. And it kind of really caught on to the fact that, how do we tell stories? What I then called was a 1-inch punch. Widens had like a 3-minute. How do we convey the spirit of Man United or of this boot or of Cristiano in a few images? And to answer your question is like, everyone coming to me now or working has got to understand culture and story and narrative, and yes, be a great creative, but be above all that a great communicator, a visual storyteller. Like everything, why is that display tilted? Oh, funny you should ask that. That is tilted because of this. Why is it made a stretched t-shirt? Oh, because it's, when you put on a Presto, it's supposed to feel like a big put on t-shirt. So everyone that we work with or have in our team, we kind of drill in. Obviously, it's got to look great, but what does it communicate? And does that kind of make sense? So like when you look at a Porsche, even
Mm.
when it's parked, it looks like it's doing 200 miles an hour.
I
So
know.
how
I mean,
that
I
I think
must
that's
say,
that's the
yeah, and I think storytelling is the key. I mean, I call myself a storyteller, no matter the medium, right? So it is visual, it is written, it is historical, whatever, because it is about how things make you feel, and stories are the way for me, the sort of like vehicle to be able to do that, no matter what discipline it is, what output it needs to be. It's the storytelling versus just the craft of something, and if you bring those two things together, wow, then it becomes this incredibly impactful, compelling piece of work. As I said, no matter whether it's that 3 minute ad, or ad, or that one, what did you say, one punch. I love that, by the way,
one.
because you need to be able to convey something. And that's sort of early, much earlier than even what we see today, where people have got less attention span. So being able to do that is crucial, or being able to create
Yeah,
something that hooks you so hardcore that you want to watch that 2 hour long thing, piece of content. It's all storytelling at the end of the day. It's the thing that kind of makes you feel, whew, you're impacted. And that can be impacted in so many different ways, you know what I mean? And whatever's right for you. I feel like that is the goal that we're constantly trying to chase and constantly trying to do for our clients. So I totally hear you. Do you see that as a reflection of your personal identity? Is your work a reflection of your personal identity? Or
well,
is there a project that you go, this was really a reflection of my identity?
I think because I've been like a goth and indie and dance and rave and I've seen like counterculture
Mm.
and the kind of the industry kind of I'm very lucky like to have access to and been to very special moments and seeing how certain things work. I mean, I
Yep.
was thinking about this. I think loads of people who are probably listening will want me to like drop gems about Virgil or Air Max Day
Sure.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think those sort of cultural things are, I mean, I'm not really into like trends. I'm interested
Hmm.
in things that are cultural that someone will steal, or sometimes we used to do installations and someone would ask, "Can we have that?" Or you see it on eBay,
Yes.
or when I lived in Stoke Newington, uh, opposite, we were only like 2 miles from Arsenal, and opposite, I looked out of one of our rooms and I saw into the bedroom of a kid opposite, and he had all the Arsenal work up that we did, and he didn't know that we did
That
it.
is incredible. Yeah.
And I think when it leaves and it goes
Mm.
into the fabric of wherever it is, and then does that kind of make sense? I love the fact that it
Totally.
becomes
Yeah.
woven into something. And
Yeah.
some of the work we've done, some of the football clubs, you can imagine when Arsenal or wherever Celtic or Man U are 200, 300 years old, our work will be in that, will be in the rings of
Part of
that
that.
tree.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
I
then also
love
you have,
that. Yes.
yeah, and you have the fans going by taking pictures in front of your work. I think I was thinking about this, and yes, I can talk about working with Sarah Andelman or talking with Virgil
Hmm.
or Max Day and all countless Nike things. The interesting one, I think, which may upset some people, is like I said, we first started working for Nike doing football.
Hmm.
At the time, uh, they didn't know I didn't like football.
Ha.
And
How
the interest
funny.
and the interesting thing was because they were new to football, they couldn't reference their past. They couldn't talk about
Right.
66.
Interesting.
So we could only lean on the future and the innovation, and that
Mm.
really suited me. And again, I'm all for tipping my hat to the past and tipping my hat to these things. But again, when we were working with Thierry, and we were supposed to be recreating a Charlie George shot, he goes, "Yeah,
Right.
wicked, Charlie George, amazing. I'm Thierry Henry, like I'm just as good." And I think when you work with those kind of people,
Yes.
it's all culture is something. it's not static, it's moving.
No.
And I'm really proud of the fact that some of our work in those years was taking what was typically a static heritage point of view of football. We made it forward. I think it was moving forward. It was redefining what, and I that talks a lot about me. I like I said, I love certain things. I'm very much into certain things, but so what? I'm not dissing things.
No.
But if you ask a younger person why, so what? You know, how do you make it relevant to them and still pay homage to everything else? So
thank you. And I think that's exactly when I talk about cultural relevance, that's exactly what I mean. It's like, you pay homage because obviously things have been around for long. Of course you do. But you go, how is that relevant today and tomorrow? And how do you sort of reshape and reimagine this thing positively for benefit all round? That's and it's hard because people define these things in so many different ways. But for me, it's about resonance with the people you're trying to talk to and relevance in the world. These are really fundamental things about relevance. So I really like the way you've put that as well, because it's really similar to how I try to explain to my clients about what and how they should be doing things and what can be done, because anything that's a bit future forward also breaks the formula, Mark. And that's why your work resonates, and that's why it's original, and that's what I appreciate about the projects that you've worked on. And I'm enjoying this conversation to understand where that comes from. Because
I think
I look at your body of work, and I can see that now as well, even more that we've chatted. So I'm really happy about that. Thank you.
I think an average person should be able to see the DNA. And
definitely.
I don't want to say, oh, in my day we used to do this, but like again, like if I speak to a young person, they don't care, like the stuff that I worked on. They've never even heard. Like our first client was Andrew Weatherall. He was our first client, and we were working on stuff, blah 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 blah. And then I went to meetings afterwards. Oh yeah, we're working with Andrew, and they're going, who? And I'm not going, what?
My goodness. I could tell you a story about that. I was like, what do you mean? Yes.
And then you go,
I literally know that story.
Yeah, and then you go, oh yeah, he's the guy that remixed famously like Streamadelica by Primal Scream. And they go, what?
Yeah.
And you realise that actually, and you go, what? You haven't heard? But then this is me, and then you realise that culture moves.
Yeah.
And things move, and so whenever we do work, there is a thread going through. So when an OG looks at it, they can go, dope. But when a young person looks at it, they can go, I feel it. It's not weighing me down, but should I want to discover more, I can. But it's talking to me, and
totally agree. So let's in the vein of looking ahead, let's talk about you and how your personal views have evolved over the years. So, and how that has shaped your career trajectory. So starting out to now, what's shifted and moved in terms of how you see things? Has anything changed? Is it the same? And how has that shaped anything for you?
I think I've only really had one job prior running my own agency. And we were sitting I was sitting with my only boss. We were sitting in the studio on the mezzanine, looking down on the team. They were all beezering away. And he said something along the lines of, look how content the team is. And I looked at him and go, what? Fuck no. All right. Sorry for swearing. I can't remember what.
Is that what we want?
Yeah. I can't remember, like, and what it was is like, I mean, I was in my mid-20s. I said, content, what a horrible thing to say. Like, where's your goals? Where's your drive? Where's your ambition? Like, I've got stuff to do. I've got, like being content. And, and we'll have to agree to disagree. But like that momentum of wanting to get shit done, I think what has changed now is I think
Mm.
that that fight in me or that challenge in me has propelled me to work on crazy projects, travel the world, do all kinds of
Mhm.
crazy
Mm.
things. But then also, it's made me lose sight of actually what's important. And I
Yeah.
think now I'm in my 50s, I can probably say maybe I am content now. I
Yeah.
think and I think it's no, maybe I if I hadn't have done the things I've done, I wouldn't have met the people I've met and blah blah blah. But I think knowing when to say, okay, that it's time to ease off that that mindset, and I think, yeah, but then does that kind of make sense? I
It
don't know
does.
how to answer that. Yeah.
No, it does. And it does because I think I'm in a similar place. This year, I'm 52 this year. And again, same as you, I think our paths timing wise have felt very similar. I also had one job before I started Spin, at 26 with no idea what I was doing, but just, in the thing and trying to find my way. So but for me now, it is different too. But I think without that, I wouldn't be here too. So I literally understand what you mean. And that's good. I think you don't want to stay in the same place as you were, back in the day, because then that means that things haven't moved forward, I feel. Or you haven't learned anything and you're
What was
just
the
kind of in the fight, forever. But so
yeah,
I do understand what you're saying. I feel like I'm in a similar place actually. Yeah.
it's a funny one because like I'm sure like there's people where you're from, and if you jumped on a plane, you could probably like okay, they talk about me. When I left Birmingham, I went back from time to time, and within 5 minutes, I could find everyone. All right, and I
Yeah.
thought, wow, that there, and I think I just had to leave, and I
Mm,
think the grass is always greener, or whatever the saying is. But you
mm.
go back and you see people, their lives haven't changed. That was never for me. But
No.
I think there's an argument that ignorance is bliss and things like that. And I think the one thing I've come to terms with, and I keep on, I've seen it a lot recently. Um, Nothing great has come from balance. Like
Mm.
whether you're an inventor, a creator, or a musician, when you watch these films or you read about something, they struggle, they fought the things, and
Yeah.
and you don't,
Yeah.
and you can even be in, you can invest all your time in your kids, but
Mm.
if you're looking for balance, I think anything great requires to be a little bit unbalanced, because you've got,
Outside of
and
that,
the thing is,
out of it. Yeah.
yeah, and then you hopefully you have a partner or someone in your life that can kind of like, I mean, I was very lucky because I was kind of crazy with work. My wife at the time, she anchored the house, anchored the home,
Yes.
look, raised like, so I was very lucky with that. And I think it's very interesting. We were talking yesterday about this. Is like if someone was to look at my job spec and they go, "There's no way I'm going to work like you work." Or we were talking to someone yesterday who works with some of the leading musicians in the world, and you go like,
Mm.
who would work and tour for 300 days a year? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I think today would people really commit to the thing? And I think that, and now I'm coming into my mid 50s. I kind of realize, did I work? Did how I work, was that right or that wrong? And I don't
Yeah.
know that. Yeah,
And I think, and I think it raises a really interesting question because I think people also go to me, "How do you do so much? You're doing this and this." I'm like, "Yeah, because I've got, my husband Luke. He holds me
yeah.
down, and he basically, I've got a great team of people around me in my office. Like I'm not just out here, yeah, working all the hours and doing the thing. I have got great people around me that keep me grounded, that hold me down, and I appreciate that of them.
I'd have people say to me like, "Mark, you're always working," or Mandy,
Mm.
my ex, who I would say, "What are you doing? Like, you working?" I said, "No, I'm drawing a logo." Like, or I was
Exactly.
in London.
Yeah.
I was in London the other day, minding my own business, and I heard someone talking. I just tell you what, blah 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 blah. Come speak to me. Here's my details,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we may be designing a coffee shop in Manchester. Now,
Great.
again, I so I get frustrated because I get frustrated trying to uh, encourage our team to be like that. And Russell told me that you
Yeah.
don't even know you're
Mm.
doing it. You
Same.
can't. What I do naturally, it's like,
Yes.
of course I'm gonna chat to some coffee guy. Of course I'm gonna,
Yeah.
it's just funny. But what I would say is, if you've known me over the years, anyone listen to this, like, this is me kind of, I used to be a very shy, quiet individual. And then
Mm.
through iteration and long, crazy hairstyles and things like that, I evolved and evolved and adapted and evolved. So I know that someone can be something else. Uh,
Yes.
and I think, through working from home and things like that, I wonder if people really aren't really serving themselves because they are withdrawn. And I've learned,
Mm.
like I said, what's the worst that can happen? And I think, just chatting to people and being curious, you might get a guest list, you might meet your future partner, or you could win a £500,000 job.
I mean,
It's all about
it's
surface
yeah,
area, and the more,
yeah.
yeah, go on.
No, it's interesting you saying that because I feel like, and I talk about this a lot, it's about opportunities and being, embracing those you and recognizing them. Talking to that guy in the coffee shop was opportunistic in a way. And I understand what you're saying about that natural way of doing things. Like it doesn't feel like I'm going, okay, here is an opportunity for blah, blah, blah. It's just, but I wonder if that's also because, we've run businesses for a long time. Yeah, maybe it's a mix of both. If you could write a letter to yourself, to your younger self, what would you say about the importance of staying true to all the things that make you unique?
I think I've sort of answered it in the sense of,
Yes. Mm,
yes, yes, I've achieved a lot, and yes, I have a lot, and yes, I've done many things that other people, you know, but then also I've lost a lot through
mm,
that. And I know I said about what great was your balance and things like that. And I think
mm, what
what I what uh what I would say to me is like, when you've got something good, just remember that. Like I said, is I'm not
mm,
with the woman, Mandy, the woman who told me about don't worry as long as we're together. I should have realized that, she, you know what I mean? That's what was
yeah,
important. And I
yeah,
think the thing is, you can lose sight of the prize. The prize is not the accolades and the cool sneakers and things like that. The accolade is what you come home to,
yes,
or the person that's in your corner. And I think, I don't know. I think it's just to remember, not probably not to push so much. Or I know
mm,
I'm that person that always pushes, and again, it has been an amazing asset, but also a curse as well. And I think to
yes,
know when to stop.
is the thing. So
I
in
think that
saying that, and as the last question to sort of, shape it all together, what so just following on from that you've just said, what does success look to you now that maybe obviously felt slightly different to before? Is it, this for sort of from a professional point of view? Obviously from a personal point of view, you've just explained, success is about understanding that person in the corner, the person at home. From a professional achievements point of view, what does success look to you now? What's looking forward for Mark Fleming and Rosie Lee's?
I don't know. And
You know what, it's not a
uh,
bad place to be, maybe.
because again, there's a lot of change. I was away with my son last year, and then we were going through a tough time at work, and we were
Mm,
lying in a field. We were in where were we? We were in Stuttgart, and we were just like we were waiting for something. And I started thinking about, all again, like I was saying, all the times I've worked late, all the times I've traveled when I should have been at home. And
mm.
then now, there's lots of change in the industry, and I go like,
Yes.
so I've worked towards something, believing I'd have something to sell or leave behind or grow. And then you realize that actually that thing isn't worth anything. The industry's
Mm,
changing, and I think I've sacrificed all this to view to get something. And I don't even have, I mean, me and my ex, and we're separated now. And I kind of realized like all that sacrifice for what? So
yeah.
that's I don't want to be depressing or things like that, but I think you got to kind of think that the industry's changing and the world is changing so much. I don't know what success looks like. I
Mm.
think I'm confident in my abilities. I'm
Mhm.
confident in like my network. I'm confident in the tools and things I use to be
Mhm.
effective and to be useful and to be happy. Um, I don't know. And also now that I'm, separated, my needs are different now. I don't
Mhm.
need these things, so I'm a bit, I suppose, to be honest, I'm somewhat rudderless. I have a
Mm.
purpose.
Mm.
No, no,
Mm.
I don't know. I really don't know. And I think it's scary, but also exciting because it means it's unwritten.
Yes. Yes.
Do you know what I
That's what I
mean?
was saying,
Like,
you know,
oh, I've got,
maybe that's not a bad thing. Totally.
yeah, like, oh,
But I
you
love,
can just imagine, oh,
yeah.
by the time I'm 30, yeah, you can just imagine someone saying, oh, by I'm 30, I've got to have a house. By the time I'm 35, I've got to have kids. Well, by the time
Yeah.
life,
Mm.
I think I ticked lots of things off, right? But now, whether I move abroad now, I'm thinking about moving to
Mhm.
Stockholm or moving to Barcelona, you know, or whatever it is. It's a brave new world, and I think to be sort of open to what the universe has to offer is the exciting thing. Uh, so yeah, I don't know what success looks like or what is working towards because I think that's the exciting challenge because I think as we're all appreciating in recent years, whatever script
Mm.
you thought you had has all gone out the window. And to be honest, that's true. That's true of the last 30 years
Everything.
anyway.
It
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
so that's the exciting and kind of interesting thing
Well,
with all this.
well, I'll personally be watching and hopefully connecting with Mark 3.0, just to be able to see what happens. But honestly, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for sharing so much about you and everything you have. And I know this is going to be super interesting for the listeners. So again, thank you so much for this, Mark. Um, Pleasure to have you.